Part 28. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 274. The group of people followed the mound and entered a small forest on the right. In the middle of the woods, a dark hole was exposed diagonally on the grass. It was surrounded by vines and grass. You could only vaguely feel the cold air coming out of it through the gap. Andy stepped forward and chopped away some weeds and vines around with a few hunting knives, exposing the entire cave. He lowered his head and immediately saw a row of vague footprints on the ground. Some grass had been trampled down and had not fully rebounded. "It's right here," Andy pointed in front of him, and a black shadow sprang out from behind him and swished into the cave. "I asked Black Panther to go check it out first." "Everyone, wait a moment." A group of people stood apart, paying attention to their surroundings at all times. A black wolf appeared at Kwajalein's feet, with white smoke coming out of its mouth. It was obviously cultivated to a very high level and was close to being a Type 2 fire wolf. He moved his hands slightly, and the black wolf immediately stood up and began to wander around the surrounding woods. Everyone is on guard. This is a bandit's cave. You need to pay attention to the surroundings at all times. After all, several batches of city guards have died. The other party will definitely expect the subsequent arrival of stronger reinforcements. Garen stood next to Goth, with a fluorescent butterfly on his shoulder. He knew very well that there were not ordinary bandits in this cave, but extremely powerful Silver Lantern masters. Totem light will only show its own defense when attacked by the same totem light. With his current fluorescent butterfly's defense, even if it were twice as strong, it wouldn't be enough in front of ordinary totems. Even a black wolf could easily break through the defense. Garen mainly relies on his own god statue skill for defense. Because of the qualitative difference, the strength of the hard qigong of the god statue kung fu cannot be much stronger when faced with the light of the totem. Galleons compared to each other, the two combined are almost the same as Andy's Black Panther. "Kwajalein, your black wolf is almost Type 2, right?" Jessica whispered to Kwajalein. The two grew up together. Jessica's brother had a bad relationship with Kwajalein, but Jessica himself got along well with Kwajalein. "It's still early. Although I have barely found a way to cultivate it, it is still far from reaching the level of a fire wolf." Kwajalein shook his head. "The subsequent evolution is a qualitative improvement. There are too many people stuck at this step." Jessica chatted with Kwajalein about some evolutionary issues to pass the time. Jana was pestered by Virali and didn't know what she was talking about. Garen released fluorescent butterflies and patrolled the sky above his head, keeping an eye on any situation that might arise. Gerda released the dark black bird. This bird is just like a woodpecker. It has no use except for its moving eyes. Andy was probably done exploring at this time. He frowned and turned back. "There is a fork in front, 2 roads. Do you want to go in?" Kwajalein hesitated. "It shouldn't be a big problem, just bandits. I've cleaned up a lot of them by myself before, so it's no problem." "What if I'm sealed inside?" Jessica hesitated. "It's okay. I know the penetrating technique and can create a channel quickly. As long as it's not blocked by the light of the totem, you don't have to worry about ordinary substances." Kwajalein replied with a smile. "Of course my sister will be taken care of by me. I want you to talk nonsense." Andy glanced at him unhappily. "You'd die if you didn't have a bad mouth." Kwajalein was also unhappy. "Forget it, let's go in first, each on one side of the fork, and look at the signs when the time comes. Let's go." He led the black wolf into the cave first, followed closely by Jana. Then Virali glanced at Garen with disdain, and chased Jana in. "Let's go too." Andy waved and walked in first. He was holding a small white ball in his hand, and he didn't know what it was. Judging from the alert look on his face, it was obviously not an ordinary item. Gerda was second, Jessica was third, and Garen was at the back. The passage was dark, and only the faint footsteps of Andy could be heard in front of him. Garen followed the three of them, feeling that the air was getting colder and the passage was getting wider. Coagulan and others who entered first had disappeared. "Be careful, don't miss me," Andy's voice came from the front. "I know. Don't worry." The three of them responded one after another. In this dark situation, the four of them could not see very clearly. They could only follow Andy's Black Panther. The Black Panther's green eyes were slightly fluorescent in the darkness, like two oval emeralds. After walking for a while, Andy suddenly stopped. "We're at the fork, they're on the left and we're on the right." The group continued to move to the right, and soon, another fork appeared in front of them. "Wait," Andy suddenly had a hint of nervousness in his voice. He walked a little ahead, in front of the Black Panther, and took out two flints from his arms. "Laugh." A little fire flashed in the darkness, and then there was a subtle hissing sound. The small torch Andy had prepared was lit immediately, and the whole cave suddenly became bright. "It's a bit troublesome under the red firelight," Andy's face changed color. The three people behind quickly stepped forward. "What's wrong?" Gerda came closer. "Ah," Jessica suddenly covered her mouth and took a step back. Galen also saw a naked man's body hanging upside down in front of Andy. The corpse had brown hair and pale skin. A large hole was dug in the chest and abdomen. There were many maggots and black ants crawling around inside. The man's eyes widened, as if he had encountered something extremely painful. With a swish, the Black Panther flew up and cut off the rope of the corpse with one claw. The body fell down with a pop and landed in front of Andy. He knelt down and examined it carefully. "I've been dead for 4 or 5 days, but they don't stink. These damn bandits." He turned over the body and pulled out a short black arrow from his back with a hiss. After taking a closer look at the color of the arrow, his expression suddenly changed. "Garen, you don't have the totem light of automatic defense. You stay and guard the entrance of the cave. The others follow me. Don't lose orders. Let's speed up. These damn bandits." "Is Jessica okay?" Andy glanced at younger sister. "It's okay. I'm fine." Jessica's chest kept rising and falling, but she could barely stabilize her mind. "Goth, protect Jessica. Although the black domain bird cannot move, its skin is very hard, and its feathers can also relieve force. Your task is to block the attacks of the surrounding totem light for Jessica. Galen, you stay here outside, it is very dangerous for you here. Your totem light cannot automatically defend and must be controlled by yourself. It may not be able to block the poisonous arrows in the dark." Andy began to explain the tasks one by one. "So we need you to ambush and guard the entrance of the cave. This will give you the best advantage, okay?" Garen nodded solemnly. "Leave it to me." He himself had already planned it, so he would definitely agree at this time. "That's it, let's go." Andy gave the order, the Black Panther opened the way, and the three of them quickly ran forward. Garen stepped back, starting at a normal speed. When there were no more footsteps and firelight in front of him, he immediately accelerated. The lightless environment had no impact on him at all. Super physical fitness brings super strong 5 senses, and the eyes and ears can naturally clearly restore the situation of the channel. Soon, he retreated to the first fork in the road. Huh! Suddenly, he was slightly startled, and found that the entrance to the passage going back had completely disappeared, and was replaced by a stone wall that was exactly the same as the surrounding environment. If he hadn't had an amazing memory and remembered the characteristics of this location, he might have thought that he was going the wrong way. The original Y-shaped passage now became a V-shaped passage, and the way back disappeared. Garen stretched out his hand and touched the stone wall. It was a very hard stone. Sure enough, it has been discovered. He paused and accelerated towards the passage leading to Kadulan. The fluorescent butterfly landed on his shoulder, emitting a soft and faint blue light, and he could see the surrounding things clearly in front of him. Soon, another fork in the road appeared in front of him. He squatted down and looked at the footprints on the ground. The footprints went to the left. He got up and ran straight to the right. After turning several corners in a row, almost several kilometers away, there was a faint trace of fire ahead. "Who?" A sharp female voice came from the front. A short-haired woman who was getting dressed walked out of the passage. This woman was only in her 20s, with a good figure and a slim waist. There is a sunken area on the cave wall to the left of the woman. There is a candle on a wooden box inside, and there is a small semicircular bed under the candle light. No one answered in the passage, and the woman could only have a normal face with a hint of doubt. "Is it Ada? Stop doing this." Still no one answered. The woman picked up a dagger placed on the wooden box, arched her body, and moved forward slowly like a female leopard. "Call." Suddenly a gust of cold wind blew in, and the woman's wide eyes were slightly irritated, and she blinked immediately. She couldn't help but rub her eyes, but there was nothing unusual in the passage. "Did I hear wrongly?" she murmured, straightened up, returned to the bed and sat down. Garin stood quietly on the other side. In the moment of the gust of wind, he had already passed the woman and reached the other side. This guard woman was only a slightly trained soldier, and there was no way she could match his peak master level speed. Passing through this guard point, Garin ran forward silently. His speed is extremely fast, like a gust of wind. With a snap, the leather boots stepped on the ground. Before the spike trap in the ground had time to protrude, the person had already crossed the trap and ran several meters away. As they passed by, poisonous arrows suddenly shot out from both sides, and rope nooses appeared on the ground, which could hang people upside down. As you advance further, there are more and more traps. Some highly difficult complex mechanisms have also appeared, including poisonous water and poisonous powder. There are even 2 Type 1 totem poisonous wasps parked in the depressions on both sides of the passage. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 275. Gwagwa. The bat monster screamed and pounced on Garin, with a faint black light of totem power coming from his body. Garin quickly dodged and stepped back to avoid the bat's attack. "Someone has come in. Didn't you know this is a restricted area?" A man's deep voice came from the front passage. A bald man wearing a black robe with 4 red lines tattooed on his collar suddenly appeared in the front passage. Beside him crouched a male lion with a dark mane. Perched on the shoulder is a black bat. As soon as he came out, the bald man saw Garin, who was avoiding the bats. "Intruder," he yelled immediately, pointing at Galleons. Buzz. The bat on the shoulder, together with the 2 black bats in the air, simultaneously opened their mouths to emit invisible sound waves. The sound wave was like a fan, completely covering Garin, who wanted to dodge. Wave after wave seemed to wash over the rocks. As soon as the sound wave touched Galleon, it suddenly broke through the totem light of the fluorescent butterfly and directly acted on his body. Suddenly, a feeling of depression surged into his heart, and Garin felt a slight headache. My eyes were dazzled, as if something was pressing my eyelids, and I couldn't see anything clearly. There was also a buzzing sound in my ears, and I couldn't hear anything. The heart beats faster and faster, and a feeling of boredom and nausea continues to hit my heart and throat. He suddenly felt a fishy smell rising in his throat. Oops. Type 2 totem, Garin immediately knew the opponent's level. Without any time to think, he turned over and backed away, tapping his feet wildly on the ground, disappearing into the darkness a few times. The bat chased it very far, but still couldn't catch up with the slightest trace. The bald man with a cold face took back the 3-headed bat totem and stroked the head of the black lion beside him. "I don't know whether to live or die. You're a little Type 1 totem master who didn't self-destruct on the spot after being hit by my triple ultrasound. You're lucky, however, the other party escaped and he didn't care." The person who was hit by triple the ultrasound Basically no one survived more than 5 minutes. He adjusted his collar, raised his wrist and looked at the time on the watch above. It's time to go take a look at Li. Recently, some bugs have been flying in, and now they are almost close to the restricted area. It seems that this position must be moved as soon as possible. He strode into the dark passage, Bat and Black Lion following close behind. Garen gasped for air, and the fluorescent butterfly hung sadly on his shoulders, motionless, and his body looked shriveled. It was obviously damaged in the sonic attack just now. Not only was the fluorescent butterfly damaged, but fine red spots were constantly appearing on the skin of Garen's body, which was caused by the rupture of countless capillaries. He was leaning against a stone wall in the passage. There was an indescribable swelling sensation all over his body, as if his body was constantly inflating and might explode at any time. The energy and blood were tumbling violently like never before. Garen tried his best to suppress it with all his strength, and frantically adjusted and controlled it using the God statue technique. It took a full 10 minutes before it had some effect. He stretched out his hands and saw blood dripping from the edges of his fingernails. So powerful, he murmured softly. The energy and blood in the whole body was shaken by the sonic attack, constantly rising and falling. The peak state of hard Qigong, which was originally seamless, actually had a slight slip. All along, he came to this world with a confidence that originated from the pinnacle of the secret martial arts world. Even after witnessing the struggle between his teacher Aining and his opponent, he didn't think he was too far behind. It's just a difference in maximum power. But now, any unknown Type 2 totem master would be seriously injured in just one encounter. This poured cold water on Garen's head. Although he knew in his heart that he was defeated by the second Type totem master, he still had no fear towards the opponent. It's because it's difficult for the other party to hurt him. Especially after recently killing a second Type totem master in a sneak attack, I feel more confident in this way of thinking. Unexpectedly, he suddenly encountered a bald totem master in this passage. The guy actually had 3 auxiliary totem bats and a main totem black lion. He was seriously injured without any action. Only then did Garen have a deeper understanding of the second type totem. 3 auxiliary totems and 1 main totem are definitely high-level people here. Such a second type totem master cannot be a small role, he guessed in his heart. At the same time, the injuries in the body are constantly stabilized. Now, his chi and blood are unstable, internal shocks and bleeding, and his strength will be greatly damaged if he fights with others. At most half of what it was before. Faced with sonic attacks containing the power of totems, the god statue skill is only slightly more resistant than ordinary people. The rest have no advantages. After resting for a while, Garen knew that now was the critical moment. In the memory screen, as long as he could find the core area here, he would be able to obtain the rare totem. This is the base factory of the Black Sky Society. If you can get the Black Sky Society's totem and take it out, it will definitely be much better than ordinary totems. We can't rush now. We can only wait for Gerda to exert his power and disturb the entire factory base nest, and then we will have the opportunity to take advantage of the chaos. Garen gradually became silent. On the wall of the cave, start digging out the rocks bit by bit. His hands are in the shape of claws, and he can grab a large piece of stone with one grasp. A groove was quickly dug out of the stone wall and the whole person got into it. All the excavated rocks and gravel were crushed into very fine black sand and scattered on the surrounding ground. It's hard to detect. Jing Jing was inside the stone wall, and Garen used his clothes to cover the groove. He couldn't see clearly in the dark, which had a strong camouflage effect. He huddled inside the stone wall and listened quietly to the sounds and movements in front and behind the passage. The reason why he rejected Teacher Aining's white bear as his main totem was because he knew that no matter how strong the white bear totem was, it would not be able to defeat the special animal totem until it evolved to its peak. As for the special animal totems, it is difficult to rival the plant totems of the Daihua Society, not to mention the strongest elemental totems of the Black Sky Society. He doesn't have abnormal talent. If his basic skills are completely different from others, it will be difficult to deal with later. Ahashia's talent can only support 2 totems, and this is because the fluorescent butterfly is very weak. If it were a white bear, it could support 1 at most. I don't know how long I waited, but Garen, who was inside the stone wall, suddenly felt the sound of footsteps coming from outside the passage. A large group of people ran through this passage, their pace was very fast. Quick! Quick! The voice came from outside. Boom! A violent vibration came from a distance, causing Garen inside the stone wall to be sprinkled with dust. It started. Gerda and the others must be fighting each other. We must do it as soon as possible. Garen waited until the footsteps passed, then suddenly got out of the stone wall, put on his clothes, and quickly rushed towards the depths of the passage. After resting for a while, he managed to regain most of his speed. The passage ahead keeps turning left and right. Soon, he returned to the place where he was seriously injured, and the bald man in black robe was no longer there. Galen passed directly through this area without stopping. The front suddenly lit up, and it was a spacious passage with torches on both sides. Several corpses were lying scattered on the floor of the passage. Their neck bones were twisted and their eyes were wide open. Some sparse blood spots were spattered on the walls of the passage, dyeing the air with a fishy smell. There are 2 white stone doors on the right, one is closed and the other is half open. The sound of violent fighting could still be faintly heard in the distance in the front passage. It was obvious that both sides of the battle had just left here not long ago and had not gone far and could come back at any time. Garen walked to the half-open stone door and took a quick peek inside. There were corpses everywhere inside the stone gate, and blood formed a stream, flowing from the corner to the door, turning the black stone surface into a sticky dark red. This shaman room should be a place for casual meetings. You can also see a bar counter, wine bottles, and sofas inside. Garen quickly walked to the second stone door and pushed it. The stone door did not move and was locked. He suddenly became energetic, aimed his right palm at the keyhole, and stabbed hard. Laugh! A big hole suddenly opened in the keyhole of the stone door. Pushing open the door, he quickly and quietly closed the door behind him. This room is spacious, with silver-white rectangular cabinets placed in it, just like bookcases, neatly arranged. There was a faint trace of red mist floating in the air. On the far right, in the corner, there is a silver-white unit factory placed on a large table. This pile of silver-made precision instruments is constantly spitting out pieces of silver-white square tissue from the dark exit. The assembled table next to it was in a mess, and the chairs beside the table had fallen to the ground. It was obvious that the people here were in a panic when they left. Without any hesitation, Garen slapped the silver cabinet with his right palm. Call. A strong gust of wind blew over without causing any movement. He felt a little more relieved. Quickly walked to the first cabinet on the left. The cabinet was densely packed with drawers, and he opened the first drawer with a bang. Inside is a neat silver-white bat. Although bats have powerful sonic powers, they still belong to the animal family and are not what Garen is looking for. He pulled away the second, the third, the fourth. All are bats. The first cabinet is full of standard bats. He quickly walked to the second cabinet. This cabinet is full of silver-white poisonous wasps, each one is the size of a fist, and the poisonous stingers at the tail are as long as half a finger. The third cabinet is partially empty, and in the larger small door below, there are wolf-shaped totems, all of which are silver-white and unactivated. The fourth cabinet, the fifth cabinet. Garen randomly picked up some small totems, which he could sell as resources in the future. But that's not what he wants most now. In front of the last sixth cabinet. The entire cabinet has only a dozen long doors, dividing the cabinet into a dozen rectangular spaces. Garen opened the first long door and was slightly shocked by what was inside. This is a dark, huge metal ball the size of a human head. The surface of the sphere is covered with dense and irregular white lines, like a toy ball assembled from witchcraft parts. The weirdest thing is that this black ball is suspended in the air. Just when he was surprised, a clear female voice suddenly came from the black ball. "Please enter the secret word." The voice repeated it in different languages, and then fell silent. "You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 276. Secret Word. What is this? Garen went to open the other cabinet doors. The other doors were either empty or contained strange black balls. The same female voice came out, asking for secret words. However, among more than 10 cabinet doors, only 4 cabinet doors contained this black ball. Secret message. Garen frowned, knowing that he had found a treasure. Originally, everything in this base should have been destroyed. After the Gothic outbreak, he fought with the main envoy of the Black Sky Society and detonated the base's power furnace. In a huge explosion, the entire base was completely destroyed. Nothing is left. Then Black Sky Society became furious and sent people to hunt down Gerda. Garen just thought that these things would be blown up anyway, so he might as well give him an advantage. What he regrets most is the unit factory. It would be nice if I could take it away, but it's a pity. The black ball in front of him looks mysterious, and it is obviously probably one of the most important things in this base. Secret words. Krishna. Garen tried to answer. Wrong. You still have 2 chances. If you answer wrongly, you will be completely locked up. The 4-ball female voice responded coldly at the same time. Secret words. Ghost. Silver lantern. Wrong. You have 1 more chance. If you answer incorrectly, you will be completely locked out. Garen narrowed his eyes and kept scanning the surroundings, but unfortunately, there was nothing for him to refer to. This black ball is most likely a secret word set by the upper level. The user must obtain the secret word from the upper level, then go to the base to obtain it, and cooperate with it before it can be used. Therefore, the secret language and the black ball should be completely separated. Garen's mind was racing at high speed, constantly thinking of possible secret words. This kind of thing looks like mass production, plus it is so confidential. It is most likely for high-level use, and high-level use should use a common secret language that all high-level officials understand. Let's take a gamble. Garen knew that these black balls in front of him should be the most precious things here. Secret word. Ghost Gate. Ghost Gate is the true name of the master behind the Black Sky Society. Answer is wrong. Password is activated. Wrong. Lock starts. Bang bang. A crisp sound came immediately. Garen felt a chill in his heart, knowing that there was no hope. Once locked, this thing is absolutely extremely difficult to unlock. The continuous snapping sound stopped at this time, and Garen suddenly discovered that only 3 of the black balls were locked, and the 3rd black ball in the middle did not make any movement. The secret answer is correct. After the black ball was silent for a while, a cold female voice suddenly came out. Garen was immediately overjoyed and rushed to the black ball, carefully watching its changes. In an instant, the center of the black ball seemed to spread out like countless building blocks, gradually opening a small circular gap toward both sides, revealing another black ball inside. The black balls inside also opened a gap, revealing an inner layer of black balls again. The 3rd layer of black balls separated again, revealing a red crystal ball the size of a fist inside. The crystal ball is held up by a milky white pillar in the shape of a wine glass, and its surface has a faint silvery red luster. Emperor number 7 Deducer, you are welcome to use it. The female voice prompted again from the black ball. Deducer, Garen was a little surprised. He quickly took out the crystal ball and stuffed it into the pocket of his robe. Anyway, these are good things. Garen took the things and grabbed a few more small unactivated totems and was about to leave. Woo! Suddenly a piercing scream came from the cabinet. Seems like an alarm. There is someone in the totem room. Haka, hold him back. Damn it! It's the kid I met just now. The triple sound wave didn't kill him. Siwa, block him on the other side. Don't let this kid run away. From the distant passage outside, angry voices could be heard. Garen's heart felt cold, and he quickly rushed out of the stone door and rushed towards the passage from the direction he came from. He couldn't handle a bald guy just now, let alone a guy with the same level of voice. Turning into the dark passage ahead, Garen used all his speed to rush along the passage. Judging from the words just now, it is very likely that the other party can see the image of the totem storage room and must leave as soon as possible. In the dark passage, Garen's body almost turned into a black shadow, and he quickly rushed towards the direction from which he came. It's here. Suddenly a dull male voice came from in front of Garen. He faintly heard the beasts in front of him growl and growl. My heart suddenly stopped. Whoops! In the originally dark passage ahead, 2 red fireballs suddenly flew in. The football-sized fireballs rolled and turned, leaving 2 fiery red after images, and hit Garen hard. The fireball flew all the way, lighting up all the passages it passed and turned it red. Some moss and grass clippings on the ground were instantly scorched and smoked. With 2 crisp sounds, 2 stones were shot out from Garen's hands, and actually penetrated the fireball directly and turned into translucent stones. Nothing could stop the fireball's progress. He jumped up, pushed his feet on the wall of the cave, and shot out with a bang, straight into the gap between the 2 fireballs. Boom! The 2 fireballs almost exploded together. The extremely scorching heat instantly enveloped Galleons, and they turned into a ball of flames and exploded in mid-air. With a bang, a charred human body rolled down from mid-air, making no sound anymore. Humph! A faint snort came from the distance. Then the sound of hurried footsteps quickly faded away. After the footsteps disappeared for more than 10 seconds, the scorched black body slowly moved. Opening a pair of blue eyes, he glanced around vigilantly. Garen slowly got up from the ground. His whole body was burned, and every part of him was so hot that it hurt. The chi and blood in the body are constantly rolling. They were almost dispersed in that moment, and now they are regrouped. A large number of blisters appeared on the face, neck, and arms. Each one was like a bunch of flesh-colored grapes, and they were round and full of serous fluid. The originally fair skin was either red or charred, and in some serious places, the abdomen and forearms had even become carbonized and stiff. He endured the pain and moved forward quietly and quickly. A guard point soon appeared in front of them, which was a depression in the cave wall. Inside were a small bed, several wooden boxes and barrels, and a few candles burning on the barrels, which were half melted. This kind of candle lamp contained in a glass pot, the dim light shines through the blurred glass, making it appear even dimmer. After passing the guard point and moving forward a certain distance, we actually entered a spacious cave space, which was as big as a football field. You can faintly hear the sound of water flowing. Boom! Suddenly there was another muffled sound, as if something exploded. Garen knew that this was during the battle with the leader here after Goth broke out. He looked around and vaguely felt that this was no longer the base layer. It should obviously be an underground cave. He kept returning along the passage just now, but after taking the same path, he arrived not at the exit, but at such a cave. Garen carefully moved along the cave wall to the other end. Huge stones were arranged closely on the ground, and water flowed through the gaps between the stones, making the sound of rushing water. As he moved forward for a while, he felt his lungs becoming more and more difficult to breathe. The more he moved, the faster the blood flowed, and the burns all over his body became more and more painful. After finally walking for a while, he was so tired that he was sweating profusely. The salty sweat flowed over the burned area, and he groaned in pain. Who? Suddenly, a vigilant voice came from the entrance of another passage that the cave in front extended to. A tall and thin figure walked down from the entrance of the passage and jumped on the big rocks into the cave. He kept scanning his surroundings vigilantly. "Come out. I've already seen you." "Hee, do you think I can't find you by hiding behind the stone?" the man sneered. After waiting for a while, there was still no movement, so he felt relieved and ran carefully towards the entrance to the underground base. At this time, Garin had quietly moved to a cave wall on the opposite side of the cave, and found a gap on the back of the big rock to sit down. At this time, his whole body was burned, and his energy and blood were boiling. He was almost shaken away and then mobilized again. The god statue skill has extremely strong recovery power and is constantly cleaning out a large amount of heat toxins from the internal organs and the surface of the skin. But even so, he was basically semi-paralyzed at this time and couldn't move his hands at all. His physical fitness dropped significantly, and he was entangled in the powerful flames of the totem light, unable to recover for the time being. This special flame seemed to have some kind of contaminating properties, and it completely contaminated and destroyed most of Galen's tissues that were burned by the high temperature almost instantly. This kind of pollution is also accompanied by heat poison, which invades the internal organs, is extremely difficult to deal with, and is getting worse. An ordinary person would probably be completely out of breath the moment the flames exploded, and would be instantly fatal to the power of this pollution. We must speed up our recovery. Garin glanced at the attribute bar below his field of vision, gritted his teeth and added a little potential to his still not fully recovered physique. His physique instantly increased from 2.5 to 2.76. This was the highest peak his body had reached in his previous life. The moment the value changed, a stream of cold air flowed out from the brain and rushed to all parts of the body. Internal organs, skin, bones, and any injured place were all soaked by the airflow. In an instant, coldness and heat intertwined, and a sharp pain several times stronger rushed into Garin's mind. Accompanied by waves of extreme itching, the burnt skin all over his body felt an incomparable itching. He wanted to reach out and grab it, but he held it back, not daring to move, and unable to move. His whole body almost went limp, and his back was pressed against the stone wall to prevent himself from falling to the ground. The pollution power of the totem light that invaded the body and the cool airflow of the supernatural power were constantly fighting and conflicting, causing Garin to sweat all over his body. The sweat dripped on the scalded wound, causing waves of more severe pain. Pain and itching mixed together, Garin completely fell into a state of stiffness, and the scalded blisters on his body burst open one by one, flowing out light red slurry, soaking the clothes that were almost charred, exuding an unpleasant odor. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 277. At this time, he had almost no power to resist. He didn't know how long this conflict would last. The intense stimulation and pain in his body left Garin with no time to think. He gritted his teeth and tried not to make a sound. He was originally able to move at high speeds, but he didn't expect that activating the supernatural power to restore his body would result in his whole body becoming stiff and unable to move. If I had known earlier, he wouldn't have triggered the supernatural recovery here. Now if a totem master comes to him casually, maybe he doesn't need a totem master, just a stronger mortal can easily kill him. Hearing the footsteps gradually leaving, Garin breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the person just now had left. Plop! Suddenly there was a sound of heavy objects falling into the water beside him. Garin froze. He turned his head hard and saw that the totem he had put in his pocket before actually fell out and fell into the water next to it. The clothes were burned by the high temperature of the flames, and the front was basically carbonized. There was a big hole missing from the pocket on the side, and the totem leaked out from there. Who? The male voice stopped abruptly. The voice actually sounded somewhat familiar. Garen's heart was in doubt, and he suddenly remembered that it seemed to be that Virali's voice. Why is he here? He endured the pain and wanted to analyze the situation, but the waves of intense pain made it impossible for him to concentrate. Virali carefully scanned the entire cave, and there seemed to be something moving amidst the rushing water. He was a little unsure. I finally escaped from that damn lair. Fortunately, Goth broke out and blocked the totem master who was chasing him from inside. The two sides fought together. After discovering the situation of this nest, Villery related the scenes and arrangements he had seen along the way. He seemed to have seen similar scenes from the teacher's records. After carefully recalling it, he suddenly remembered that this was probably the secret stronghold of some ghost silver lantern totem masters. After Goth and the opponent's leader fought together, when everyone was shocked, what Virali thought about was not to marvel at Goth's strength, but to the various resources and treasures that might exist in this stronghold. The main force has been attracted by Goth, and the rear area will definitely be even more empty. While everyone's attention was attracted, he quietly left from the rear, got in from the other side of the passage, and tried to get around to the back of the opponent's totem master. He quickly advanced along the passage for a while, and found that he did not encounter any obstruction. He was overjoyed, speeded up, and soon entered the cave. But there seems to be someone here. Virali's heart sank. What he was afraid of was that there was someone here. Once he is discovered and an alarm is raised, and he is attacked from both sides, he will be directly surrounded, and he will not know how he died. The sound seemed to come from there. Virali aimed his eyes at the direction where the movement came from, and moved his feet gently towards that direction. At the same time, he flipped his hand and a blue bird flew out and flew towards there. Thrust. He suddenly struck hard, and the blue bird turned into a sharp blue arrow, which stabbed at the big stone where the sound came from. Laugh. The blue bird pierced the stone directly, came out from the back, and circled around several times. It's as easy as a nail piercing tofu. No one. He frowned. Could it be a fish? With some hesitation, he took back the blue bird and turned to leave. Garen slowly emerged from the water under the crack in the stone. In an emergency, he dived into the water and escaped the blue bird's puncture. Otherwise, the puncture would have given him a chill. Not to mention him at this time, even in his heyday, he would not dare to resist the totem master's attack head-on. Hu Jialong let out a long sigh of relief. The cold and biting stream water soaked his body, and it was mixed with the two kinds of stimulation in his body. His current situation was unprecedentedly troublesome. Using his hands and feet, he climbed out of the water and lay on his back on the stone surface, breathing heavily. So it's you, Garen. Virali's voice suddenly came from the side. Garen was slightly shocked and turned his head with difficulty. I don't know when I saw Virali standing beside the pierced stone, staring at him with a smile on his face. Not bad, it's exactly what I thought. Virali's eyes fell on the hole in Garen's pocket, where the silver luster of the totem was exposed. Seeing that it was an inactive totem, his eyes suddenly became intense. You also came out of it, right? A guy who doesn't even have a core totem can actually bring out so many totems from it? Tisk tisk. It's really enviable. Virali licked his lips. Galen's heart sank. From his previous performance, it was clear that Villery was a cunning character. He. Do you think I can escape from it without any means? Garen said with a difficult smile. It's just that the blisters on his face look a bit scary. This is what Villery is afraid of. After missing the stab just now, he felt a little unsure. Now that he saw that Garen was still alive and could even laugh, he felt a little scared. You're already like this, it's better for me to send you out for treatment. He gestured to come over to help Garen, his eyes flickering. Suddenly, his movements froze and he saw a spherical object bulging under Garen's blackened clothes. "If you come here again, we will all die together," Garen laughed ferociously. "I still have a totem bomb here. Come here if you don't want to die." "Look what you said, we are partners in the same team, how could I harm you?" Virali rolled his eyes and said with a smile on his face. "But you really don't want me to help you? Look at how badly you are hurt." "You don't have to worry about this." Garen endured the pain and looked at Virali still standing aside and refusing to leave, obviously with bad intentions. "Aren't you leaving yet?" Virali chuckled and remained silent, just staring greedily at the totem exposed through the hole in Garen's pocket. Bluebirds kept flying around him, and his intentions were obvious. He could completely distance himself and let Bluebird attack Galleons from a distance, which would only cost him a totem. When Garen saw this, a look of despair suddenly appeared in his eyes. He gritted his teeth and trembled all over, his chest heaving violently. Okay. Here are the totems for you." Garen was furious, and with difficulty he took out the bat totem, the poisonous bee totem, and a few beetle totems from his body. He wrapped them all in rags and threw them over. Snapped. Virali controlled the bluebird to bite the totem package, brought it to him, and inspected it. The smile on his face suddenly became deeper. "You really don't need my help. Get out." Garen's eyes turned red and he yelled out breathlessly. Boom! Another explosion came. The huge vibration caused the roof of the cave to shake. The expressions of both of them changed. Virali glanced at Garen and knew it would be too late if he didn't leave, so he immediately gritted his teeth. He turned around and rushed towards the entrance of the lair passage quickly. Laugh! A blue shadow flashed and stabbed Garen hard, piercing his slow-moving right arm. Garen yelled, turned over and fell into the water, suddenly becoming silent. Virali was a little confused. It seemed that although the bluebird had hit the target, it didn't seem to hit the vital point. With such serious injuries and heavy bleeding, he should be dead. There was a trace of cruelty on his face. "If you want to blame it, you have to blame yourself for meeting me." As soon as he slipped into the passage, the bluebird followed him and disappeared into the darkness. Inside the lair, the bald totem master and a white-haired totem master rode on two black lions together and moved quickly through the passage. A large number of black bats screamed strangely above them and followed them. The bald man held a crystal round mirror in his hand, with a small eye-catching red dot flashing on it. From time to time, he looked down at the red dots on the round mirror, with a hint of sneer on his face. "Thought our Black Sky Society's totem was so easy to get? This idiot. I didn't expect to be so resistant." He didn't die even after being hit twice. The white-haired man next to him walked side by side. "It hasn't been solved yet? Why did Debiki delay it for so long for a little guy?" "I don't know, I guess he just wants to have fun. That guy likes to torture his opponents the most. The tougher the guy, the more excited he is." The bald head licked his lips and smiled. Suddenly he looked at the round mirror in his hand with a surprised expression. "What's going on? This guy didn't run out, but he dared to come back." "What?" The white-haired man looked over from the side, saw the little red dot on the round mirror, and actually started running towards them. "Does this guy think that Haishan Club is a free treasure house?" The bald head was a little annoyed. "Perhaps he thinks we haven't found him yet? But this kid will never know that our totems are all marked with identification marks. What's wrong with taking them? He actually dares to take unactivated totems." The white-haired man couldn't help but chuckle. "That kid is very fast. Don't let him run away for a while. Send more people to block the exit." "Leave it to me." The bald man grinned. "I missed it once, but I won't miss it twice. He really pissed me off this time." He showed his white teeth. The two of them rushed through a corner in front and stopped suddenly. In the opposite passage, a tall and thin man stood with a bluebird on his shoulder. It was Virali. Villali suddenly stopped and stared blankly at the two totemists, the bald and the white-haired. I wipe. Cold sweat broke out immediately, and there was a biting coldness all over his body. This is obviously the passage at the back. How could it be? Hey, boy, do you think I wouldn't recognize you if you changed your appearance? There was a hint of ferocity on the bald face. You stole our things and you actually want to do it a second time. Villari took 2 steps back, fear trembling throughout his body. He could feel the terror of the 2 people opposite him. The bats flying around above his head were all Type 2 totems, and there were 6 of them. Not to mention the black lion the 2 of them were sitting on. The saliva dripping from the lion's mouth actually corroded the ground into big holes. Kill him, the bald head pointed at Virali, and the bat above his head suddenly rushed toward the opposite side crazily. No. Virali's screams continued to echo in the passage, spreading far and wide. For a moment, he suddenly recalled Garen's expression at that time. There was a hint of sarcasm hidden in the seeming anger. At this moment, he felt how vicious the guy named Garen was hiding in his heart. This was simply his fault. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 278. Wow. Garen's head popped out of the water. He shook his hair, letting the ice water flow down his forehead and cheeks, and held the wound on his left arm tightly with his right hand. Looking coldly at the direction Virali left. Just now he suddenly recalled that when he was in the totem storage room, the bald man watched him as if he saw it with his own eyes, and something felt wrong in his heart. Just in case, he simply threw all the totems to Virali. This kid was so stubborn that he dared to threaten him. In the end, before leaving, he killed someone to silence him. Sure enough, after throwing all the totems to Virali, he suddenly felt much better. When the secret martial arts practice reaches its peak, the 5 senses and the body will have inexplicable reactions when they are in danger. This is caused by extremely sensitive instincts. It is also an ability that is absolutely impossible for Silver Lantern Masters to achieve. This requires all the body's senses to be extremely sensitive. Although the secret weapon is not as powerful as the totem, it still has many special advantages that the totem cannot achieve. I took the things and didn't run out. I still wanted to go in and take advantage. This way I won't die. The sun can come out from the west. Garen climbed out of the water mockingly. Without stopping at all, he got up with difficulty and ran towards the passage outside. The supernatural airflow seemed to have finally offset the fire poison of the totem power, and the body gradually began to recover, but it seemed that the supernatural airflow was relatively exhausted. Recovery also becomes incredibly slow. Garen glanced at the attributes below his field of vision. The potential point originally became 16 points after killing the totem master, but now that 1 point is used up, it becomes 15 points again. However, at this critical moment, if he wanted to recover on his own, it would take at least a week. This injury was more serious than the one he was seriously injured by Xianflan in the previous world. Everything outside the body and inside was a mess, and the qi and blood were a little unstable. He gritted his teeth and looked at the physique column again. The potential point jumped a bit, but still couldn't add the physical constitution. He shook his head in disappointment, endured the pain of his injury, left the cave, and crawled into the exit passage. Suddenly, there was a faint scream from behind. After listening carefully, it turned out to be Virali's. Garen paused, with a sneer on his face. This idiot. He has to leave here as soon as possible. After the explosion on Goth's side, I don't know how long it will take to detonate the power furnace. If you don't get out quickly, no matter what you do, the totem master will be hit by a huge explosion, and then buried deep into the depths. Under the ground, even if you don't die, you have to shed your skin. The power furnace is not an ordinary thing, but is used to refine special silver nuggets for use in making totems. The reason why Black Sky Society is stronger than others is because they have mastered too many cutting-edge technologies. Among them, the raw materials of the totem, the core silver nugget, are much stronger than others. Garen touched the round red crystal ball in his arms. Although he didn't know what it was definitely not an ordinary thing that could be preserved so tightly. He had a vague feeling that he might have found a treasure this time. Enduring the pain, Garen accelerated his body and rushed toward the exit. Now that his whole body was covered in wounds, he had to join Gerda and the others as soon as possible. As for how the wounds came from, Garen had no intention of hiding it. Walking along the passage, I had already succeeded, but in the end everything was taken away by Virali. This matter can be entirely blamed on Virali. Soon, the light from the exit in front was faintly visible. There was no one stationed in the cave just now, and it was no longer within the scope of the lair. But Garen still felt completely refreshed. The feeling of standing on flat ground was much better than being underground. He jumped out of the hole and staggered out on the grass. The sun was shining on the body, and the injured area where the blisters had exploded felt a stronger stinging sensation. He looked up at the sun, which was so dazzling that his vision was slightly dizzy. No, there is too much overdraft potential. If there were no potential points to increase the physical recovery, I would probably not be able to survive by now, he understood clearly, and rushed to the shade of the tree in a few steps, and sat down on the grass. Leaning against the bark of the tree, breathing heavily. The shade of the tree was facing the entrance to the cave. From the cave entrance to where Garen was, the yellow pus dripping in the middle formed a line, emitting a disgusting stench in the sunlight. Garen sat quietly under the shade of a tree, trying not to faint. But his consciousness was constantly being hit by severe pain, and his consciousness was still a little hazy and unclear. This time I suffered a big loss, he felt a little angry. In the world of secret martial arts, he is undefeated. Even if Xianflan's final battle is an upright confrontation, it will at most end in a situation where both of them will perish. But now that he was here, his whole body was injured due to something as weird as the power of the totem, and my Wu seemed to have no power to resist at all. We must find a way to resist the pollution of the power of the totem as soon as possible. The reason why the power of the totem is powerful is because of the pollution itself. Apart from this, its lethality is actually no different from the normal situation. Garen struggled to keep his consciousness clear. He simply moved to the back of the tree trunk, facing away from the cave entrance, and hid himself. A gust of wind blew by, causing the leaves to rustle. An oval leaf fell down and touched Garen's skin, causing him to experience severe pain. He slowly took out the crystal ball and held it in his palm. The moment his eyes were fixed on it, the red crystal ball suddenly lit up slightly, emitting light red fluorescence. Several lines of text suddenly appeared in the ball. Welcome to MaleProtagonist, please select your language. Below are rows of various Gago languages, Sania, Kuwaitan, and Enite. Shania, Khawatan, and Enite are the three strongest countries among the hundreds of countries in the eastern continent. Among them, Shania and Khawatan have joined forces to fight against a superpower in the western continent. Although Enite is also a powerful country, but its area and national strength are far behind the former two, and it is vassal to Kuwaitan, making it much stronger than other countries. Because of its small area, it can only be considered a powerful country, not a big country. Garen only recognized these three languages, and he didn't know which countries the rest were from. There are a bunch of them densely packed up and down. Garen's thoughts wandered for a moment, then quickly returned to the crystal ball. Is it touching? He stretched out his index finger and tapped on the ball. Kuwaitan was chosen. The text disappeared immediately, and the function introduction words appeared again. Function introduction: you are now using a general level deducer. Dear General, please enter your specific name by voice. The deducer will store your phonetic name for encryption. General level. Garen's heart skipped a beat, he had indeed found a treasure. Galen, he answered in a steady voice. Your Excellency Galen, let's introduce the functions of the deducer. Function 1, this deducer will provide you with a totem control system with an upper limit of 10. You can control any silver totem with an upper limit of 10 through the deducer without any burden on the main body. Function 2, the deducer controls the nature of the totem, which can only be silver totem. This deduction device has the function of silvering the core of a living creature into a semi-living totem. Unable to control pure silver totems. Please use with caution. Silver totem, transform the living body and core of a living creature into a biological totem controlled by silver. Please note that the evolution of the silver totem itself will not be guided and controlled, and is completely determined by biological genetic influence. Please choose silver creatures carefully. Function is abnormal, please go to the 4th black sky for maintenance and inspection. Galen carefully sorted out the messages displayed on the crystal ball. By dragging his fingers up and down, he could browse the contents of the ball at will, which was as convenient as an electronic touch screen. The function of this thing is indeed powerful. Garen read the function introduction and suddenly had a certain understanding. They were able to develop a way to turn living creatures into semi-totems. The Black Sky Society is really powerful. No wonder they dared to start a world war alone in the subsequent battle. It turns out that the root cause is here. This thing can control 10 totems alone. And it's additional and unburdened to control. Not counting his own core totem, one person can control more than 10 totems, tisk tisk ki. These totems are all Type 2 or Type 3 ultimate bodies. When Garen thought of that situation, he felt somewhat numb. It was simply a single soldier mechanized core. A totem division could equal an armored division. He lowered his head and looked at the crystal ball, and suddenly his heart moved slightly. Every product on the earth will have a number. I just don't know if this exists. Show the deducer number, he tried to ask aloud. As expected, a row of tiny numbers appeared in the crystal ball. Number 0032 GCR, your infer is the 32nd in Dongzhou. There are a total of 10 general level inferers placed in the Kowatan area. Please keep your function confidential. Garen was suddenly shocked. There were actually 10 units of this thing in Kowatan. Putting away the crystal ball, he had a rough idea in his mind. The deducer was an epoch-making masterpiece of the Black Sky Society. It could control additional totems. Although it was transformed from living things, it was probably not as powerful as the real totems, but the quantity could make up for the quality. But this thing is not a real totem. What he lacks most now is the core totem. After tinkering for so long, getting this thing can indeed be used to improve one's strength, but there is still no core totem. He was slightly helpless. After groping around in his clothes for a few times, he threw all the totems to Virali. Those things should have tracking signals, so they obviously couldn't be taken out. If he hadn't happened to aim at the secret word and unlock the ball, there would probably have been a tracking signal on the black ball containing the deducer, and it would have been stronger. Only the core totem can protect and defend itself 24 hours a day. Phew, he breathed out, with a hint of blood. Suddenly his eyes fell on a tuft of grass not far away. Perhaps you can try the silvering function of the deducer. There was a rustling sound coming from the grass that he noticed. Soon, a gray-white rabbit came out of it. The hare's ears drooped cutely, and its buttocks bounced out of the grass. It glanced at Garen, seemingly curious. Come, baby, come to brother. Garen chuckled twice and quietly picked up a stone from the ground. Snapped. The stone was ejected and hit the little rabbit on the head. The force was neither light nor heavy, just enough to knock it out. Garen endured the pain and moved over, lifted the rabbit up, and returned to the tree trunk. Take the crystal ball out of the wrapping and place it next to the rabbit. Suddenly, the crystal ball lit up. Is the raw material biosilvered? A line of text appeared in the ball asking. Yes. Garen answered in the affirmative. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 279. Suddenly, the red crystal ball slowly turned into silver white, like a metal ball, releasing a silver halo. A silver beam of light shot out from the center of the sphere, shining on the hare's head. After 5 full seconds, the silver beam quickly disappeared and the crystal ball turned red again. Silverization is over, biological samples are loaded. Please do not move during the main link transfer. The crystal ball suddenly shot a red light in the direction of Galleon. Garen only felt warm and comfortable in the area where he was exposed. Soon he saw changes. In the skill bar below the field of vision, there is a 3D icon of a totem. The icon is the hare that is still in a coma. Iron Gray Rabbit, the first form of living totem, which can be improved. Evolution success rate, 81%, the weaker the body, the higher the success rate. Potential points consumed, 200%. Abilities, kick legs, eat grass. Garen looked at the second ability speechlessly. Is eating grass considered an ability? He glanced at the hare that was slowly waking up from a coma. The little guy seemed a little confused. He stood up from the grass limply, shook his ears, and then looked to the side. Galleons. After a few hops, it ran to Garen's feet and lay down to rest on Garen's legs in a friendly manner. Is this a semi-activated totem, a biological totem, a silver totem? Garen picked up the rabbit ears and lifted them up to inspect them carefully. Maybe we can try to see what it will look like after evolution. Having found a new source of potential points, Garen doesn't have much need for them for the time being. In the War Guild, he had taken on so many missions in a row. If he had been strong enough, he would have been able to accumulate some potential points long ago, instead of having to complete the mission with great difficulty or even giving up on the mission. So after so many missions, he still hasn't been able to accumulate any potential. He looked at the current potential, 1594%. There were so many missions, some were successful, some were unsuccessful, and I killed 3 Type 1 Totem Masters, raising my potential to 94% again. You can earn more potential points if you have strength. Let's give it a try first. He starts looking at the Titan Gray Rabbit icon for 3 seconds. Slowly, the 2 potential points disappeared. The icon of the Titan Gray Rabbit suddenly became blurred, and the description behind the totem also became blurred. Garen placed the gray rabbit he was holding on the grass and watched its changes quietly. Hiss. Suddenly, the gray rabbit man stood up, and his whole body began to twist and bulge violently. Strong muscles began to appear on its body. Woo! The rabbit actually looked up to the wolf and started howling. From the size of a palm, it quickly grew in size and swelled to the height of half a person. Its eyes were blood red, and veins were popping out under its skin, pushing up all its gray fur. The limbs lengthened, and he stood on the ground with a snap, as big as a horse. Laugh. It blew out 2 thick puffs of breath from its nostrils and made a snorting sound like a horse. His tongue stuck out, panting like a ha-ha dog. He squeezed around Garen affectionately. Woo! The rabbit arched a few times, then raised its head and howled again. Garen's face twitched as he looked at the rabbit, and then at the new totem icon that became clear on the skill bar. Howling Wolf Rabbit, the Titan Gray Rabbit evolves to the second type, the second form biological totem. It can be improved, and the evolution success rate is 54%. Potential points consumed, 300%. Abilities, Explosive Kick, Plant Exterminator, very edible. Looking at this ability, Garen wanted to laugh but was immediately suppressed by the pain on his body. The Titan Gray Rabbit suddenly transformed into a half-human tall creature that looked like a wolf, a dog, and more like a horse. It looks like a wolf dog in rabbit skin. But just when the roaring wolf rabbit took shape, Garen suddenly felt that the light of the totem on his body suddenly became much thicker. A layer of transparent glass-like totem light naturally covers the body surface. Fortunately, the light of the totem is still effective. Garen stretched out his hand to feel the light of the totem on his lower body, and reluctantly nodded with satisfaction. With a thought in his mind, the wolf and rabbit roared and ran wildly towards the woods in the distance, and quickly got into the trees. Boom! Suddenly the big tree shook. Garen didn't check for a moment and almost fell to the ground due to the vibration. The ground shook violently, like an earthquake. I could vaguely feel that something was exploding underneath. Garen quickly turned his head and looked towards the entrance of the cave. There was a rush of footsteps, getting closer and closer, and soon 3 figures rushed out of the cave. It was Jessica, Andy, and Gerda. The 3 of them were covered in wounds, and there was a long bloody mouth on the right side of Jessica's cheek, which looked hideous and terrifying. Andy's left arm was twisted and fractured, his forehead was covered with sweat, but he just gritted his teeth and persisted. Gerda was the last one to come out. He looked pale and staggered a bit when he walked. From time to time, he had to rely on Jessica's support to continue moving forward. As soon as the 3 people came out, they saw Garen standing up under the shade of the tree. "Galen! Let's go," Andy shouted in a hurry. Garen did not hesitate and followed the 3 men, running towards the route they came from without stopping at all. Before I ran 100 meters, I suddenly felt that the grass around me had turned white. A burst of bright light came from behind. The 3 of them looked back while running. At the entrance of the cave passage, and within the entire 50-meter radius, an extremely thick white beam of light burst out of the ground and shot straight into the sky. A harsh whine kept coming, irritating the eardrums of the 3 people. The ground was also shaking violently due to the vibrations of the sound waves, and the palms of the 3 people's feet began to feel numb. The white light beam was tens of meters in diameter, piercing the ground and reaching into the sky, illuminating everything around it palely. Soil, rocks, trees, animals, and plants were all decomposed and disappeared in the white light, as if they had been completely disintegrated and melted. The 3 of them ran forward for several hundred meters before they dared to slow down and stop slowly. For a moment, the 3 of them were speechless as they looked at the beam of light soaring into the sky. They just felt a sense of shock and tingling in their hearts, and they didn't know what to say. Puff. Gerda sat down on the yellow-green grass, covering his chest and looking in the direction of the light beam. "I don't know what I'm thinking." Andy patted Galen on the shoulder, put down his backpack and sat down. "I'm not in the mood to talk either." Galen was covered in charred black, with a set of tattered clothes hanging on his body. He took out a change of clothes from Andy's backpack and put them on directly. "What happened to you? How did you end up like this?" he asked in a low voice. "That's not a bandit's lair at all, but the Totem Master's base," Andy replied in a low voice. "We met the Totem Master inside, and then, if it weren't for Goth, no one would have survived this time." Jessica nodded silently and looked at Gerda, her eyes slightly complicated. Garen noticed this and understood that something unspeakable must have happened among the 3 of them. There was finally some progress between Jessica and Gerda. "What about you? How did you end up like this?" "It's like being scorched by fire." Andy looked at Garen. The light beam dimmed at this time, slowly became thinner, and then went out directly. The golden sunlight shone down again, covering up the overwhelming white light just now. Where the white light beam rushed out, a large hole with a diameter of tens of meters was left. It was dark, with wisps of smoke rising from the edges. Garen looked at the big hole and breathed a sigh of relief. He felt that the howling wolf and rabbit was fine and had obviously escaped from the dangerous area. He felt a desire to eat coming from the wolf and rabbit. He was actually hungry, so he let him eat around him and be careful to stay hidden. Only then did Garen come back to his senses and answer Andy's question. "I was hit by a fireball from the Totem Master inside." I don't know what kind of flame it was. Fortunately, the temperature was not high, otherwise I would have been dead. Garen smiled bitterly. It's probably the fireball of the Black Lion. He can spit two kinds of fireballs, one is red, you can have as many as you want, and one is green. It takes a long time to spit out one. It is much more powerful and corrosive, Andy explained. Said, Goth just resisted hundreds of pills. Garen was shocked and looked at Goth sitting on the ground. This young man in red overalls was sitting on the grass with a melancholy look on his face. His posture was very curvaceous with overlapping legs, very enchanting and sexy. Well. Garen and Andy turned their faces at the same time, resisting the desire to vomit in their hearts. Goth, can you stop putting your thighs together? You're not Jessica, thank you. Garen couldn't help but speak. My leg is hurt. Gerda raised his head and said with wide eyes. Don't do such disgusting postures even if your legs are injured. Andy grabbed Gerda's neck and shook him hard. I'm warning you. Don't choke my neck. I hate whoever chokes me the most, Gerda struggled and shouted loudly. I don't care about you so much. Ah! What a fool. Don't catch me. You bitch. I let you catch me. Let you catch me. The two people struggled in a ball on the grass. Jessica stood aside and blushed, turning her head away from them. Garen crouched down and looked in the distance in the direction of the light beam. What was that just now? The power furnace was built by an organization called Black Sky Society. Jessica replied quietly. Goth finally detonated the furnace, and everything, blew up into the sky. Garen was silent for a moment and then asked. What happened to Gerda? His talent exploded, and the black bird could move and turn into a very big bird, Jessica recalled. Then, he stood in front of us. She did not continue, looking aside. The corners of Gerda's mouth gradually softened as he struggled. Perhaps everyone is wrong. Garen also focused his attention on Gerda. He's not a loser, he's a real genius. Sure enough, even you have discovered my extraordinary qualities, ha ha ha. Gerda laughed proudly. Don't admire me too much. I am a born legendary hero. Ha. 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 The strap of this guy's overalls fell off. He quickly held up his pants with one hand and pointed to the sky with the other while laughing. Andy was on the ground holding his broken arm and groaning in pain. In the sky above the heads of the four people, several bluebirds flew by quickly, fluttering their wings through the clouds and against the strong wind. Each bluebird has white paper rolls tied to its legs. One of the paper rolls was obviously stained with blood. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 280. The four members of the Black Panther team returned to Titan City, and with the help of Andy's father's acquaintances in the city guard, they were all admitted to Chiaruna College-affiliated hospital. This is the best hospital in the entire Titan City, with the best doctors. In the ward, Garen was lying on the hospital bed board. The floor above, below, left, and right were all white. On the bedside table next to her, there was a vase of lilies with some withered petals. There was a metal stent on the right side of the bed, with a medicine bottle hanging on it for intravenous drip. The medicine entered Galen's blood little by little along the infusion tube. He could clearly feel the cold potion entering his body from his wrist. The room was silent, except for the faint sound of footsteps passing by in the corridor outside. Garen was lying alone on the hospital bed in the middle. From his perspective, he turned his head and looked out the window. He could also see that the big trees outside were blooming with a large number of small white flowers. The midday sun shines down from above, through the leaves, and forms mottled golden fragments on the floor of the room, which sway a few times in the wind. Click. The door opened slightly, and a fat nurse in white walked in. She pushed the dressing cart to the bedside, quickly closed the medicine bottle that was about to be ordered, then replaced the medicine bottle and picked up a new one. Go up. You're in good health. The middle-aged woman glanced at Garin, the extensive burns healed so quickly. I have been in good health since I was a child. Garin smiled. By the way, let me ask, how are the companions who came with me now? I don't know, the nurse replied casually, I'm not responsible for them. You can ask the doctor. Forget it, take a rest and I'll go check on them, Garin said and stopped talking. The nurse changed the medicine and went out directly, and the door closed with a click. Garin changed his position to lie on his side, feeling a little stiff all over. He lay on the hospital bed without moving for a whole day. Soon the door clicked again, and a girl who was very young, no more than 14 or 15 years old, walked in. She was also wearing a nurse's uniform. She was holding a large plate in her hand, with many white food boxes stacked in it. Lunch is here, I've been waiting for a long time. The girl placed the plate on the bedside table, then took a box off the top and placed it on the cabinet. At noon, we serve carrots, potatoes, stewed pork rinds with potatoes, and white bread. There is no limit to the quantity. Please use it slowly. The girl was very innocent, with a childish look on her face. She didn't dare to look at Garin on the bed, and her tongue seemed to be a little knotted when she spoke. Excuse me, what's your name? Garin looked at the little girl funny, and suddenly thought of his sister Yinger in the previous world. His eyes softened slightly. Can you do me a little favor? My name is Vichy, what are your orders? The girl straightened out a little, but still lowered her head and did not dare to look at Galen on the bed. Vichy is a student who comes to the hospital to work part-time. She just entered Chiaruna College this year, the best medical school in the city. Although it is only famous in the surrounding area, it is already considered a good environment. As a child born into a poor family, she cherished the opportunity to intern in an affiliated hospital. Unexpectedly, among the nurses who worked together as interns, she was the only one chosen to be admitted to the high-end nursing area due to her good appearance. Specializing in caring for the rich here. In the high-end nursing area, there are either experienced nurses or the type with good appearance and good figure. For the patients here, the experienced nurses are responsible for the actual business, while the good-looking young nurses serve as eye candy and comfort. Before Vichy came here, he had heard that the patients here were either rich or powerful. Maybe just one of them he met would have a strong background. When she thought of this, she became even more uneasy. He won't make any excessive demands on me, right? Although she thought so in her heart, the girl's romantic feelings made her involuntarily fantasize about how she might meet a like-minded aristocratic young master. He is handsome, well-educated, gentle, and considerate. Maybe he just likes her type. Maybe. When he was in trouble, he stood up and blocked himself in front of him with his tall figure. After forcing away the bad guys who appeared out of nowhere, he turned around and gently raised his chin. The girl stood blankly beside the bed, her face flushed, and she let out a few giggles from time to time. Can you please go and check on the situation in wards 235 and 257? I have two friends living in the wards over there. Garin watched speechlessly as the girl giggled beside him, and gently touched the girl's arm with his fingers. Hey, are you okay? No, it's okay, the girl quickly came back to her senses. I'll show you right away. Her face flushed, she secretly glanced at Garin on the bed, and was immediately frightened and lowered her head. Am I so scary? Garin picked up the lunch box and touched his face in confusion. Lunch tasted good, the steak was stewed very well, the soup was very thick, and it tasted delicious. After finishing lunch in a hurry, put the lunch box aside. Garin wiped the corners of his mouth and half leaned against the head of the bed. His arms were thickly wrapped in large circles of bandages, like two white baseball bats. Only his fingers could move freely. Am I that terrible? He was confused, took out a small mirror from the drawer of the bedside table, and looked at himself. What was reflected in the mirror was a round bald head with no hair, no eyebrows, No beard, nothing. The originally handsome facial features looked indeed frightening under this change. Garin touched the smooth top of his head. The hair had been shaved off during the treatment, as had the beard and eyebrows. The high temperature of the flame will scorch them in an instant. Rather than leaving them black and sticking to your face, it would be better to shave them all off at once. He touched his eyebrows and felt a bit like an alien in an Earth movie, with only white skin and facial features. The lack of eyebrows gives people a fierce look. No wonder it scares the little girl so much. More than 10 minutes later, the little girl named Wei 11 knocked on the door again and came in. "Sir, the patients in the 2 wards over there are all fine and their conditions have stabilized. The gentleman named Andy asks you not to worry." The little girl stood at the door and did not dare to approach. "Do me another small favor and I will thank you." Garin tried to make his smile softer so as not to scare the child. "I'm bored. Can you get me some copies of the latest Global Weekly?" "Global Weekly? Okay, Vichy agreed quickly, "it's in the reading room. I'll get it for you right away. In fact, there are free newspapers and magazines in the ward, but they are not new enough." Galen didn't wait long. Soon, Vichy ran in with a new stack of newspapers and handed the newspaper to his hand. "Here's your newspaper." This little girl's smooth brown hair was tied into a ponytail, and her slightly developed figure kept rising and falling as she ran vigorously. When she ran to Garen's bed, she also brought with her a faint girlish fragrance. Garen's gentle tone seemed to have an effect, and Vichy became a little less afraid and a little more courageous. "Do you have any other instructions?" "No, thank you, my lovely child." Garin smiled and unfolded the newspaper. As soon as he unfolded it, Garin saw the most eye-catching title at a glance. Ennet's diplomat stationed in Ireland was killed. He then looked down. A large-scale terrorist attack broke out in Elando on the 15th of this month. The army organized by the Elando royal family was defeated overnight and the royal family members were captured. This terrorist organization publicly stated that it was an association called Black Sky Society. In this attack, a Kalaya diplomat who was talking to the royal family Prince Attenborough was killed. Ennite issued an emergency statement. The murder of the Kalaya diplomat was a serious provocation to the Ennite Empire. The Empire will not let go of any terrorist organization that provokes dignity. At the same time as this article was published, Ennite's third-ranked general, Wei Lan, has led the Third Army to Elando to help the local royal family suppress terrorists. General Wei Lan made an important declaration before the Legion set out. He had some thoughts on the current situation. Garin put down the newspaper with a bang, exhaled slightly, and did not continue reading. It finally started. Although the newspaper did not follow up the report, if the guess is correct, the Wilan army will be wiped out next, and 3 small empires will once again set off terrorist turmoil. The scope of the Black Sky Society's war has greatly expanded. Spreading towards the 3 major powers in the truly most powerful region of Eastern continent. The 3 empires of Shania, Kuwaitan, and Ennite are the most powerful alliances in the entire Eastern continent. They are also the gathering place of the main forces of the Royal Alliance. The most powerful totem masters are located in the 3 major organizations behind the 3 empires. Middle. On the surface, the 3 major organs are tools used by the Imperial Alliance to manage and reconcile conflicts among various countries, but in fact, those behind them are the Silver Lantern Masters of the Royal Alliance. He flipped through the Global Weekly again, and a piece of news on the 3rd page caught his attention. Terrorist wild animals attack humans in Sunnio. Below the title is a black and white photo. The world already has technology similar to cameras, and the scientific research technology of Silver Lantern designers is actually no worse than that of scientists. In the photo, a rat corpse the size of a wash basin was held upside down by its tail by a strong man. The man held the mouse in one hand and showed the bitten forearm with the other hand. The flesh on the forearm was bitten to pieces, bloody and red. In recent days, there have been many incidents of strange wild animals attacking humans in Sunia. Most of these animals have weird shapes and are stronger and more ferocious than ordinary animals. Edile, a biologist at the Zania Imperial Research Institute, believes that this is a rare atavism due to unknown reasons. These creatures occasionally have individuals revert to their ancestors, showing a huge body size and a fierce change in temperament. According to research, it is speculated that the most likely cause of this mutation is pollution. Since the report was released, the Environmental Protection Department of Sunia has conducted pollution raids on this issue in the 3 provinces where attacks occurred. Galen noticed that there seemed to be something shining in the eyes of the mouse in the photo. He narrowed his eyes slightly and suddenly remembered the snarling wolf and rabbit that he had successfully evolved. The eyes of the two were surprisingly similar. The eyes of the snarling wolf and rabbit also seemed to be shining with a faint silver light. Garen looked up and glanced around. The little Vichy girl had already gone out and the door to the room was closed. He stood up again, walked to the door, hung up the sign saying "Don't disturb me when you are resting," and gently zipped up the door lock. He closed the curtains again and sat down on the bed. Garen took out a red crystal ball from the clothes hanging on the hanger. The ball was only the size of a fist and looked like a crystal ornament. Garen lay back on the bed with the crystal ball. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 281. After he took the crystal ball into his hand, it suddenly glowed with a faint red light. Like liquid, a line of text emerged from inside. Please enter your voice print to unlock. Galen. Unlock successfully, dear Lord Galen. Your upper limit of control modules is 9 silvered creatures are limited to animals. Control has been transferred. A row of data status automatically appears below. The light intensity of the main totem, 1 type is ordinary. The silver totem controlled by your current module will provide you with the same intensity of totem light as the public totem masters. Please note that only the totem light intensity provided by the silver totem controlled by the deducer is calculated here. The intensity of your own totem is unable to calculate. If you need to test, please go to the 3rd Black Day for defense assessment. The specific grading levels are for reference and comparison in the database collected by Black Sky Society. The database needs to be updated every 2 years to ensure authenticity and rationality, so that you can have a clearer understanding of the specific positioning of each totem. Garen understood that this Type 1 was ordinary, and if it was the Black Sky Society's assessment, it should be very accurate. Type 1 normal means that among Type 1 Silver Lantern Masters, the additional totem light provided by the Roaring Wolf Rabbit has the same defensive power as the Type 1 normal totem. There may be subtle differences, but they are roughly the same. The Roaring Wolf and Rabbit is a Type 2 totem, but it only gave me the light of Type 1 totem. It seems that the rabbit itself is too weak. Maybe I can choose a stronger biological silver. Garen had some concerns in his mind. The evolution of the silver totem consumes less than the totem controlled by oneself, but it requires eating and excretion. And the strength is probably not as good as the real totem. Garen carefully compared the difference between the silver totem and the original totem. A silver totem, a little rabbit, needs 2 potential points to evolve to Type 2. My fluorescent butterfly needs 5 potential points to evolve to Type 2, and the chance is astonishingly low, only 21%. The success rate. Logically speaking, fluorescent butterflies should not be so much higher than rabbits. From this point of view, it is probably due to the difference in the totem itself. Garen breathed a sigh of relief. When my body is completely healed, I will go to the market to see if there are any rare animals that can be bought as silver totems. Since there are atavistic creatures now, after my silver totem evolves, I can also disguise myself as a silver totem. The atavism phenomenon, since the Silver Lantern Masters have evolved all kinds of strange forms, it should not have any impact. Garen remembered that there seemed to be a large wild animal market in Titan City, where all kinds of animals were sold as food and pets. There are a total of 5 districts in Titan City, and the 5 sectors form a complete circle, which is the entire Titan City area. Noble area, trade area, civilian area, mixed area, and the largest Titan area. There are 2 pet markets in the trade area, which specialize in providing various pets for sale to big businessmen and nobles in the noble area. There is also an irregular animal market in the mixed area. Some animals caught by hunters are sold here, but it depends on luck. Finally, there is the Titan district, which has the largest wild animal market and a weekly beast wrestling show. Galen heard this from a familiar grain and oil boss. Titan district is a mixed bag, with colleges, hospitals, government departments, factories, wholesale markets, etc., everything can be found there. The entire Titan district occupies most of the city. There are extremely prosperous banquet halls, and there are also impoverished slums. Compared to extremely expensive unactivated totems, these wild animals are much cheaper. Galleons are completely affordable with the current income. After making up his mind, Garen began to carefully study the crystal ball of the deducer in his hand. This thing is like a touch-screen computer, and you can encounter some strange functions from time to time. After studying the deducer for a while, Garen accidentally dug out some information stored in it. This deduction device is used at the general level. According to the above display, there is also a school level below. At the school level, one can control silver totems within 5 heads. From the general level up, there is also the commander level, which can control 20 silver totems. Thinking of the war that is about to break out later, the overwhelming silver totems. Obviously, the number of deducers at the school level is far more than that at the general and commander levels. In addition, after the deducer silvers a creature, once the creature dies, it can immediately re-silver a new creature. There is no time limit. Unlike the original totem, which requires at least a 5-year gap. After staying in the hospital for a full week, Galen fully recovered. Most of the burns on his body have healed, leaving only large scars. Andy and Gerda, on the other hand, were not as quick as him and were still lying in the hospital. I have to lie down for at least half a month before I can be discharged from the hospital. Their families on both sides came to visit occasionally. Jessica was not injured, but she often came to take care of the 2 of them. Gerda's mother also came over a few times, taking care of Gerda with Jessica. Before Galen was discharged from the hospital, he had a pretty good relationship with Gerda's mother and Andy's brother and sister's family. But this time he was mainly a soy sauce player. The main players were Gerda and Andy. Relatively speaking, there was some separation. Garen didn't care either. As long as he was still in the team, he would be taken care of by Goth, and the level of tasks he could perform in the future would also increase rapidly. Seeing that Garen was discharged from the hospital early, Andy and Gerda unanimously asked Garen to submit a task to the guild. There is a totem master in this mission, and his level must be raised several levels. Hire Silver Lantern Engineer ICBC. In the spacious and deserted hall, Garen stood in front of the task handover window and looked at the young girl staff member inside. Galen took out Andy's mission medal and handed it over. Have the subsequent investigators already visited the investigation mission that the Black Panther team received? What is the mission level now? The female staff member took the medal, flipped through the thick notebook, and quickly found the record. Yes, the Black Panther team took on a reconnaissance mission to investigate the bandits' lair. In addition, there were 3 other teams that took over this mission. There was an abnormal change in the mission location 5 days ago, and the level is now upgraded to difficulty level. She raised her head and looked at Garen. Are you the representative of the Black Panther team? Yes. The female staff member looked at the medal, picked up a pen and wrote something down in the record. Okay, come with me, your reward is at the back. Garen walked in through the small door on the side and followed the staff into the inner room. There were some large items placed in the room inside, all covered with black cloth, so you couldn't see what was underneath. the staff said as they walked. Many of the tasks this time have been increased in difficulty, and most of the rewards have been added from above. The same goes for your tasks, with a lot of good things added. She took out a list and handed it to Garen. Garen took it and looked at it. The additions to the list are all great. Among them, 2 unactivated White Dragon Eagle totems caught Garen's attention. The White Dragon Eagle totem, this is the most powerful totem in Titan City, with a market price of 900,000 yuan, and it is not yet available to buy. It is known as the most ferocious bird in the animal system. This is the family totem of the Grand Duke, although it is difficult for outsiders to cultivate and evolve to the highest level. But even if it can reach the second type, it will be extremely powerful. Feathers like steel, lightning speed, extremely sharp claws, and powerful special abilities. The White Dragon Eagle Type 2 of the Grand Duke family has a special ability called Tearing Roar. Similar to the infrasonic attack of the Bat Totem, but far more powerful than a bat. It is impossible for an ordinary Type 1 totem to withstand the Tearing Roar. This kind of roaring sound wave impacts from high altitude. It once killed the Type 2 of the same level within 10 meters. A totem master who breaks the totem's light is directly shocked to the point where he bleeds from his orifices and dies. The power can be regarded as one of the strongest totems among the known second type totems. This is all because of its strong foundation. There are actually countless changes in the cultivation of totems, just like biological evolution. Different conditions are given, and the direction of evolution is also different. The basic body of the White Dragon Eagle is powerful, and it will not be any worse no matter how it evolves. It is one of the best basic totems. The directional instructions of the Grand Duke family summarized an evolutionary direction that is most suitable for them. The White Dragon Eagle would not originally be circulated in the market. This top-level totem is made by imitating the long-extinct creature Dragon Eagle. Only the Grand Duke family, the rulers of Titan City, control the flow of White Dragon Eagles. Now, it is obvious that these 2 White Dragon Eagle totems are special rewards given by the Grand Duke family. Galen felt a little eager. He has the ability to forcibly evolve. Unlike other totem masters, the totem will self-destruct after the evolution fails. The failure of the potential point to evolve will not affect the totem itself at all. This is clearly explained by the symbol above. As long as he gets a powerful Type 1 totem like a White Dragon Eagle, he can use his potential points to turn it into a Type 2 White Dragon Eagle, without being restricted by the evolutionary knowledge of the Grand Duke family at all. Is this White Dragon Eagle totem a leak from the Grand Duke's family? Garen pointed at these 2 things and asked in a low voice. Yes, those who get the White Dragon Eagle totem can spend money to buy basic cultivation knowledge at the Duke's Palace. Other different types of cultivation materials can be purchased at the Duke's Palace. The female staff member nodded in reply. Go this way. The 2 walked through a hall, turned into a deserted wooden corridor, walked along the corridor, and soon came to a row of wooden doors. The staff began to take out the keys and read the corresponding numbers. Garen is ready to get the reward. After the team distributes it, he goes to the wild animal market to have a look. He should be able to buy some good creatures for silvering. As for the 2 White Dragon Eagles, one must be given to Goth, and the other one, Garen was thinking about whether he could get it from Goth at any price. The White Dragon Eagle has a price but no market, and you can even exchange it for a basic unit factory. For Galen, it is an indispensable good thing both from the core totem and the unit factory. Gothic's core totem includes the Black Domain Bird, which is a more powerful totem than the White Dragon Eagle, and there is no need for this at all. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 282. When he came to his senses, the staff took out the key and opened the door. This time, the governor's mansion presented a total of 100 white dragon eagle totems as an additional reward for greatly improving the tasks. It was a waste of money. But even so, the acceptance and completion rate of tasks still did not improve much the staff side. He took a breath and said, "It's hard to see clearly how difficult the tasks are these days. Most totem masters don't dare to take on tasks rashly. And there are far fewer people who dare to take on tasks. That's why the white dragon eagle is released as a reward." She looked at the list. "But it's not your fault to be envious. That's the reward for the hurricane team who mainly completed the mission. Your reward is at the bottom." Garen was stunned. "The hurricane team that mainly completes the mission? What do you mean?" The staff gave him a strange look. "Of course they are the main force of this mission. The hurricane team destroyed the Totem Master terrorist nest and detonated a large-capacity white totem bomb. They already took away the main reward yesterday. You guys on the side are lucky. For the team that was not involved, it would be good if they could pick up a reward, which is a reward of 100,000 silver wheel cloth per person." Garen's heart sank. "You said it was the main force of the hurricane team that completed this mission." "That's right. There is actually a Type 2 Totem Master inside. I watched their mission process and it was very difficult to complete." "What's wrong with you?" The female staff member looked at him strangely. "A Type 2 Totem Master?" Haha, Garen sneered. The 3 top Type 2 Totem Masters exaggerated by the Black Sky Society were said to be 1. It was obviously a power furnace explosion and was said to be a white totem bomb. This hurricane team is really talented and has compiled everything. Enter this small wooden room. This is your reward." The staff handed a small black bag to Garen. Garen remained calm and did not take the black bag. He glanced around and immediately saw a middle-aged man standing by the window on the right, quietly looking over here. He knew that without Gerda coming out, nothing he could say would be of any use. No one would believe that a team with no Type 2 Totem Masters could kill 3 Type 2 Totem Masters and come out of the lair without any casualties. In contrast, everyone will definitely believe the lies of the hurricane team more. Presumably, this hurricane team didn't know everything that happened inside, and they didn't know the changes in Goth. That's why I made it up like this. Garen thought that although he had an extra howling wolf and rabbit and his defense was stronger, he still couldn't break the totem light of the second Type Totem Master in a head-on confrontation. "Not much to say. Sorry, I don't think I calculated this reward clearly." "Not sure," the female staff member frowned. She was also a Totem Master. Although she was only a totemist, time could not be wasted so casually. "What point is not clear? Point it out and I will be responsible for my work." Garen smiled politely. "Actually, I want to say that in this mission, there are still some details that the hurricane team has not completed and clear. Those are some things that our captain has personally experienced, so I hope that after our captain is discharged from the hospital, he can come over and correct the mission process record in person." The female staff member looked at Garen for a while. "If you insist, I can suspend the reward collection, but you have to understand that it may not be long before these rewards are taken away by another person." She paused and frowned. "Or, if you think there is something wrong with Hurricane's mission report, then your efforts will be in vain. The people from the guild have sent people to check, and everything is normal." Garen noticed that the man by the window had left at some point. He suddenly knew something. "I didn't say much to the staff either. Forget it, our captain will come over to talk in person soon. It's useless to talk about it now." He didn't intend to do this, and the hurricane team naturally had the potential to break out of Goth's solution. That guy couldn't even withstand 3 second Type Totem Masters from the Black Sky Society, let alone a small hurricane squad. "That's up to you," the female staff member shrugged. The two turned around and left the room, returning along the same path. Several staff members passing by saw Galen with nothing in his hands and didn't even look at him. Returning to the mission hall, Garen politely thanked the female staff and asked for a business card from the other party. Tavi Nisir Garen looked at the name on the business card and then carefully put it away. In the mission hall, which was already bustling with people, there were a few more people, a group of strong and sturdy men, who were staring at Garen with a sneer. Seeing Garen coming out, the group slowly stood up. Garen frowned and glanced at these people, walked out of the mission hall, went down a few steps, and walked directly in the direction of Chiaruna Hospital. As expected, the people behind him followed him closely. He noticed that these people were wearing a black and white hurricane badge on their chests. Garen quickened his pace down the street, followed closely by the three men behind him. Two groups of people entered the city one after the other and mixed with the crowd, moving against the current. Garen glanced back from time to time. "I'm just a scout, not a combatant. It's better to leave these things to professionals," he murmured in a low voice and quickened his pace. He used the steps in the secret martial arts silently, getting faster and faster. Soon the three people behind him disappeared. After failing to collect the reward, Garen walked around the street and decided to go back to the hospital first to tell God Andy and others about the reward being fraudulently claimed so that they could be mentally prepared. I hurried back to the hospital. In front of the entrance of the white 5-story building, there were several people with hurricane signs standing guard at the edge. Just as Garen was about to walk over, he stopped and stood behind the wall of a building to hide. "There is nothing we can do now." Garen waited outside the building for a while, and soon saw two little nurses in white walking out of the hospital building. One of the little nurses was 14 or 15 years old, and it was the little guy who brought him food. He had an idea in his mind, and after the little nurse came closer, he walked around in front of the two of them to intercept her. "That, Vichy!" Garen blocked the path of the two men and shouted loudly. Two young nurses were chatting quietly when they were suddenly called. When they looked up, their faces turned pale with fright. A terrifying man with a bald head, no eyebrows, and no beard was standing in front of the two of them. The man stared at the two of them with a lewd smile, with a hint of gloom and cruelty on his lips. Garen didn't expect that just a kind smile would frighten the two little guys like this. He quickly stopped smiling and tried to look as calm as possible. "Vichy, I am the patient you gave me lunch, have you forgotten?" Vichy also immediately remembered this impressive patient, and she stood in front of her companion. "What's the matter with you?" She became a little tongue-tied in excitement. "Can you do me a little favor?" Garen grinned. The two little guys were so frightened that they trembled all over. 2 minutes later, Garen looked at the backs of the two little guys walking into the hospital, and felt a little calmer. He turned around and saw 3 people from the hurricane team blocking behind him, staring at him silently. And across the street on the left, a young man wearing a gold-rimmed white hat walked towards the side. He also wore a hurricane badge with a black background and a white whirlwind on his chest. There are 2 silver horizontal lines engraved on the young man's badge. Type 2, Garen immediately recognized the meaning of the horizontal line. Good eyesight. The young man walked 5 meters away from Garen, stopped, took out a cigarette from his pocket, lit it lightly with a match, and took a puff. "To be honest, you run very fast. If I hadn't happened to be guarding here, I might not have found you. First time we met, my name is Casey. I'm just a nobody." Garen grinned. Only then did he notice that a petite black sparrow was standing on the eaves not far away, with a faint silvery light in its eyes. The sparrow flew over gently, landed on the young man's shoulder, and then stopped moving, like a sculpture. "Okay, no more nonsense. I'm here to unify the voice," the young man Casey said calmly. "On this mission, only us Hurricanes and you Black Panthers survived, and the other 2 teams died. Inside. I don't know what's going on inside, but if you want to get the mission reward, you must be on the same page as us. Understand?" "What do you mean?" The smile on Garen's face calmed down. Go and take out the reward later and deliver it to this address. You can keep 1/3 of it for yourself. Casey took a puff from his cigarette and puffed out white smoke rings, his eyes a little indifferent. As a reward for our hurricane shelter for your team this time. We got the job done. Garen said calmly, looking at the other party quietly. You did it, Casey shook his head. I detonated the white totem bomb, and I killed the only second type totem master. You said you did it? Who do you think you are? Haha, Garen just laughed. Laughing? Are you very proud? Casey's eyes were a little angry. I humming made you laugh, he slapped Galen. Snapped. Suddenly Casey's arm was grabbed. You are very proud, boy. A red shadow flashed, and a tall man in red overalls stood in front of Garen, giving Casey a sunny smile. Let go, Casey's face darkened. Don't let go. I said let go. Casey's voice was high-pitched. His face was trembling, and he was obviously on the verge of anger. I won't let you go, so hit me. Gerda chuckled and put his face closer. You're looking for humming death. Casey finally got angry and slapped the opponent's side of the face hard. Snapped. A sharp and crisp sound suddenly spread. Garen stared at the location of the two people in stunned silence. Although he had already noticed the arrival of Gerda and others, he did not expect that Gerda, who was a little out of touch, would use this method to solve the problem. I saw Casey covering his face tightly and staring at Gerda in disbelief. Come and hit me, come and hit me. Gerda pointed at his crotch with a look on his face and pushed forward. Come on. Kick here, hard. What the hum? Casey was so angry that he rushed over and kicked him hard. Oh! An earth-shattering scream. Casey fell to his knees with a pop. A black light film of varying brightness shone above his body, but this light film obviously failed to block this fatal blow. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 283. Andy shook his head and walked over and stood side by side with Garen. Poor guy, it's not good to mess with anyone. He has to mess with Goth. Are you okay, Garen? It's okay. Garen had already sensed the two coming, so he asked the Hurricane team to behave. I didn't expect the effect to be so good. At this time, the other three members of the Hurricane team saw their captain falling to the ground. Their faces looked frightened for a moment, and they didn't know whether to move up or run away. Let's go. Let's go, Casey shouted, looking at Goth like a monster, his face distorted. Still trying to leave, Gerda spat and rubbed his hands, then jumped on him and beat him violently. Our mission rewards were swallowed by them, Garen quickly reminded at this time. It's a false claim. This statement made Gerda even more angry. Every time he slapped Casey hard on the face, there was a slight black thorn, as if there were countless spikes growing on his body. This kind of spike easily penetrated the totem light on Casey's body. Moreover, Goth's speed and strength are simply astonishing now. Garen watched Gerda take action, and just looking at the speed at which he rounded his arms and drew down each time, he felt his heart skip a beat. I'm afraid this guy already has the power and speed he had after completing the god statue Kung Fu. Although he had known that some geniuses could gain part of their abilities from their core totems. But I didn't expect that Goth would actually increase in strength to this extent. Moreover, Gerda has just awakened his potential and has not yet fully exploded. When it finally breaks out, we still don't know how powerful it will be. No wonder it can reach the point where one person can decide a war. Garen was shocked. He practiced secret martial arts. In order to reach the point where the statue of the gods was completed, he had to endure countless hardships and fight desperately for many times. But now, in addition to his fighting skills, Goth's physical fitness is not inferior to his at this time. Even Garen's character felt a little unbalanced at this time. Casey and the other three members of the Hurricane team were beaten like gourds by Goth, and were thrown against the wall like random items, causing passers-by on the street to leave quickly for fear of getting into trouble. The way Casey looked at Gerda changed from humiliation and anger to fear and fear. He knew very well that the opponent's strength was definitely not a simple second-type totem master. After all, he did not choose to release the totem and fight to the death. Once the totem was released and the fight started, it would be a real fight. Goth would destroy his totem and completely destroy it. It can ruin all his years of hard work. Without the second-type totem, he couldn't even maintain the Hurricane team. The opponent can even break through the totem light of the totem master, not to mention the defensive strength of his own totem. It is easy to destroy his own totem. At the end, Casey could only endure being beaten by Goth without saying a word. He just held his head and huddled up, not daring to speak back at all. In the corner of this block, the two groups were like little gangsters. Gerda beat 3 of them without any pressure, and then forced Casey to not only return the 2 white dragon eagles and other rewards, but also to compensate for mental damages. A series of expenses including security threat fees, reputation damage fees, etc., totaling 820,000 yuan. The two parties signed a document and pressed bloody fingerprints. Casey now understood that Gerda was definitely capable of defeating the second-type totem master. He was really going to piss him off. There was turmoil everywhere outside the city. Just find a deserted place. If you intercept him, the sky will not respond and the earth will not work. After letting Casey and the others leave, Gerda clapped his hands, put the papers away, and patted his pockets. Come on, find a place to sit. Okay, Andy nodded. After hearing the message, we came out quickly. Now that the matter has been resolved, it's time to plan carefully. Garen also nodded. The 3 of them turned the corner and found a coffee shop. They found a seat in the back and sat together, each having a cup of milk coffee. The coffee shop was deserted, with 5 or 6 customers sitting sparsely inside, chatting in low voices. In front of a white piano, a man in white is playing a soothing unknown tune. On the wall to the left of the 3-person seat, hung the latest calendar, with all past dates marked with red ticks. The last one not checked was February 24th. Spring has arrived. Garen took a sip of coffee. I don't seem to feel much cold this winter. It's a bit. I just thought it was autumn and I don't feel it at all. Andy nodded. The situation in the guild is not very good right now. An acquaintance of mine came to see me the day before yesterday and I asked about the situation. The largest of the Silver Lantern Masters Guild, the 2 mercenary groups, Black Light and Blue Leaf, had a hard time completing their last mission. Among them, Black Light actually lost 2 members. That was the most powerful Totem Master mercenary group in Titan City. Both the leader and deputy leader were 3. The ultimate body Totem Master actually suffered 2 casualties. The situation is not good now. When I went to the guild, I saw that there was no one inside. Garen whispered. My friend is engaged in intelligence statistics. According to his understanding, there are not only 100 but also 80 low-level teams like ours in the guild. However, in the past month, many teams have gone out and never come back. Those who have more than one, the medium-sized team of the second-type Totem Master, also suffered heavy casualties. Now the 5 guild points are much deserted. It's okay, don't you still have me? I will protect you. Gerda drank his coffee in a few gulps and said lazily. The 2 shook their heads and ignored this guy. Andy continued, in previous years, the guild's battle-loss ratio was the highest, and it would not exceed 10-1, which means 1 person died on average in 10 missions. But this year, it has reached at least 5-1. I guess the upper management of the guild will take measures. Now I suggest that we should recuperate first, and after the body is well, we can digest the rewards of this mission, and the situation will be almost clear by then. We will see if we go to take the mission or not. How about that? Garen nodded slightly. He knew what Andy was thinking. They were just there to make extra money and practice themselves, not to really work hard. There was no need to carry out such dangerous tasks. Even if a totem master joins a security agency, his benefits will be more than 3 times that of ordinary people. It's totally possible to live a nice simple life. Most of the people who go to the guild to perform tasks are those who pursue excitement and advancement. These are all national affairs. Anyway, those big shots are worried about us and don't care about our affairs. Andy breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "Anyway, Goth, Jessica and I both owe you our lives this time. If you need any help in the future, just ask. You're welcome." He patted Gerda on the shoulder. Gerda calmed down for a rare moment, with a serious look on his face. "Actually, the life I want is very simple. Have good food and drink, find a gentle girlfriend, and work hard to show everyone who looks down on my mother that we can still live a good life away from home. Then I will give birth to 2 sons later, one named Andy and the other named Galen." "You kid," Andy couldn't help but punch him. "My father has ordered me not to go to the guild anymore because the scar on Jessica's face made my mother cry for 2 days. It is probably unlikely that I will go on missions again in the future." His voice lowered. "I'm almost done with my experience. With the guild's mission certificate, I can apply for a job at a national organization and the benefits will be much better. Maybe I can become a small official." There was a hint of parting ways in his words. The 3 of them fell silent for a moment. With the difficulty qualifications of these 2 missions, "Gerda, which department do you want to join? Just mention it and I will hand you the application form." "It can be any department. The Guild of Hiring Silver Lantern Masters is useful in the entire East Continent. This job with your qualifications, you can get a good position even if you join the royal family," Andy said with a smile. "Or go to a place like a college and serve as a security consultant or special lecturer. There are a lot of beautiful girls in the school." Gerda lowered his head and said nothing for a while. "I'll take my time," he replied in a low voice. "What about you, Garen? What are your plans?" "As a homeless person, what else can I plan?" Garen shrugged. "I'm going to wait and see. I don't have any plans in mind." "You are 21 years old, right? You are no longer young, and it is time to plan for the future. Do you want me to introduce you to a girl? Definitely not one with a bad private life," Andy said sincerely. "Get a family as soon as possible. I have someone to rely on in my heart. I also have a goal to strive for." "Let's see." Garen shook his head. "I haven't thought about it yet." He knew that before long, various dangers and troubles would appear in the city and Gerda and others would have to come back to clean up the surrounding dangers. Living things in action. Almost all totem masters cannot be idle. Black Sky Society's big move is coming soon, and such a peaceful life can't last more than a few days. He is different from the 2 of them. He is not a native of this world and is destined to be just a passerby. His purpose is actually to find the secret of his own journey. He has always wanted to control his own destiny. Life is short, only a few dozen or even 100 years. There must always be something worth pursuing in life. Garen had a vague obsession in his heart. He didn't want to follow the crowd anymore. He had too many questions about his own experience that he wanted to know. In this universe, what is eternal? Don't think so much. Andy patted him on the shoulder. After separating from Andy Gerda, we made an appointment with the contact information and address. Galen left the coffee shop alone, walked a short distance along the street, and reached out to stop a carriage passing by. "Go to the trade area." He climbed into the car. The driver is a middle-aged man with a mustache. "The trade area? It's a bit far away. Guests who want to leave the area will be charged double if they go more than 10 kilometers away." "Where to go to the trade area specifically?" Garen nodded, indicating that he knew the price. "Go to Huaningdon Street. Do you know this place?" "We still have to walk a little further to Huaningdon." "Are you going to the pet market?" the driver asked skillfully. "That's it. How about 8 silver wheel cloths?" Okay, Garen agreed readily. After getting into the car, he leaned against the right side of the car and felt the car turn around and speed towards the rear. The streets outside the window kept sliding past, white residential buildings one after another, and occasionally passing by women's stores. As the carriage continued to advance toward the trading area, the streets outside the carriage gradually became a little dirty. More and more carriages passed each other, and occasionally a gorgeous-looking vehicle could be seen. There were also some bullock carts pulling fruit goods passing by the street, and they were quickly left behind. After gathering his mood, Garen began to look forward to the wild animals he was going to buy. If nothing else goes wrong, White Dragon Eagle Goth is not needed. He is currently in the period of explosive strength, and there will be many stronger subtotems in the future. But I am different, I can't wait any longer. The core totem must be determined as soon as possible and then evolved quickly, otherwise it will definitely not be able to withstand the upcoming war. Garen already had a plan in mind. Then it's time to consider what creature to silver as a subtotem. Strengthen your own strength as much as possible so that you can hunt more totem masters in the battle and get more potential points.